I bid you welcome.
I welcome you to my house.
Welcome to my house.
Welcome to my home.
Hello horror hounds, welcome to my horror house. This video wasn't something I had intended to review. It's a 1983 horror film called Curtains that I'm pretty sure was very recently reviewed by Adam and Justin over at Frightfully Forgotten, and then over the next couple of days I saw it pop up in my Facebook feed and my Twitter feed, and I thought, okay, fine, this is a sign I need to get myself a copy of Curtains and check it out. And I watched it for the first time last night and really enjoyed it. 80s slasher movies is one of my blind spots. There are so many of them that chances are I'll have seen the cover and not seen the film. I've seen all the big ones, but so many can fall under the radar, and this Canadian offering is one of them. It's not perfect, it's a little rough around the edges. We'll talk about the good and we'll talk about the bad. After watching it, I went in completely cold. I read up a little bit about it this morning and found out that it had a very troubled production. The end credits are two sets of credits called, a little bit highfalutinly, Act 1 and Act 2. And I didn't pay that much mind because there are transitions throughout the movie where a set of animated curtains open up and you're introduced to the next scene. And I thought, oh, they're being a bit fancy pants and they're saying that the movie had 2 or 3 acts and what. No. It seems that the director and the producer both wanted completely different things out of the movie. The director thought that he could make a really character-driven thriller set in the casting world of Hollywood, and the producer thought that he could knock out another slasher like Prom Night that he'd produced previously and make a nice quick return on a cheap and easy slasher movie. So one production shut down. The director left with 45 minutes shot or something like that, and then the producer came in and did more shooting, recasting. Eventually, after about 3 years, put the movie out as it is. All of this background drama goes an awful lot of the way towards explaining how shoddy the story of Curtains is, but in a weird sort of way, it adds to its charm in the sense that nothing's quite right and nothing's quite real and nothing's quite as it seems. Set in the sort of pre-production world of Hollywood and very stagey, it does revel and play with that. It centers around a director, a sort of mogul director called Stryker, played by John Vernon, who is finally putting on, producing Audra, a script that he attained the rights 2 years ago and has been sat on and noodling with and trying to get into production, and now is finally the time. And he is going to audition 6 hopeful actresses for the role of Audra, but not in any sort of ordinary way. No, he invites all 6 to spend the weekend at his snowbound house. They're going to have a weekend of auditions, all 6 of them there. What could possibly go wrong? Wow. For a start, the actress who he's snubbed, the film starts off with a fake out. This is to give you an idea of the unreality of it all. We start with Samantha Eggar talking to someone off screen, someone she hates, someone who's wronged her and someone she's going to kill, and the camera pulls back and we very quickly see that she's on stage and she's performing a piece to Stryker, who's up in the wings, sort of hidden in darkness, and he doesn't believe her. Now she's method, she wants to understand the madness behind this Audra character who had been committed. The next little bit of the film sees Stryker taking her to a psychiatric facility to be committed, and by this point the stress has driven her mad and she attacks him with a pair of scissors, until we find out that that too is a fake out and they're in cahoots to get her committed to an asylum so she can do research on the part and understand it from the inside out. Except Then he does the flipperoo on her, and she finds out through an edition of Variety that he's now auditioning in the outside world, and she's locked up in the asylum. So when she turns up to the snowbound country house to fill the 6th spot for the auditions, people are going to start dropping off one by one, and it turns it very much into a sort of And Then There Were None, Agatha Christie type, very much more giallo than, I guess, the kind of killing off a slew of teenagers every 10 minutes slasher movie that the producer had envisaged. So when we start dabbling into the giallo territory, you know that that's going to perk my little ears up and get my attention. And lo, it did. Because then I spent the entire rest of the run thinking, as I imagine I was intended to do, well, Samantha Eggar's character can't be the one killing them all off, because that is far too obvious. So what is it? What is it? And this, bear in mind, is a film that has by this point faked us out 3 times, with Eggar's audition at the start, with her being committed. Then we see one of the hopeful actresses, even before she gets the auditions, being attacked and supposedly raped, until you find out that it's a little bit of agreed and consensual role play between her and her partner. So the film fakes you out so many times that you start questioning the truth of everything you see. Add into the mix John Vernon with real force and menace, playing a Svengali type director who really genuinely seems to have brought all these actresses here so that he can casting couch them through the entire process, manipulate them, have them do what he wants. The audition pieces are needlessly sexual. It's heavily going into Weinstein territory, way before the expose on Weinstein and the Me Too movement and the like. You will be screaming for this guy, screaming for him to get his comeuppance, and just wriggling with such discomfort that this tranche of women who are just so hopeful for a job are willing to put up with stuff like that. And it's assumed by some that that's, well, it's just the way it is. Unfortunately, what we have with such a patchwork project with no clear vision is a series of set pieces not really driving towards anything. We get characters killed off one by one, so rather than reaching a sort of natural final girl status, it kind of falls into a sort of messy miasma of, oh well, here's just the sort of the last person left alive, and then so here's your sort of final girl, or survivor as I prefer to call them, survivor set piece. On the plus side, those moments, those scenes, those set pieces are really vivid and fantastic. The killer dons a hag mask, an old lady mask. That is one of the creepiest slasher masks I've ever seen in my entire life. You will hear when people talk about Curtains, they will talk about the kill scene set on the frozen lake, the ice skating scene. And when the killer starts skating towards the victim holding a sickle with that mask on in slow motion, it's so eerie and dreamy. And then her running away through the snowbound woods. And you really do think, I know it's a cliche, hey, set the next Friday the 13th movie in the snow. But you watch something like this and you think, or David Cronenberg's The Brood, also filmed in Canada, and you think, why aren't more horror movies set in the snow? Why aren't more slasher movies set in the snow? The setting is so evocative. It's so cold, harsh and unforgiving. It's the perfect setting for a slasher movie. That alone helps Curtains to stand out. There are other visual things like the doll, which you will see on the cover here, pops up quite a few times, sort of nonsensically. This again is the giallo influence. As long as it looks cool, it doesn't have to make sense, because the film does play fast and loose with common sense, and it doesn't play fair. Sometimes the killer will come out of places they could never conceivably have been. The doll pops up and you're thinking, why is that? The mask appears before they get to the house, but the mask is also a prop that the director wants to use at the house. If you start picking at the edges of it, it will all crumble. If you watch it as a kind of theatrical facade and sort of dream-like logic, as you have to do with an awful lot of gialli, there's an awful lot to enjoy. And finally, this sense of facade and unreality is only heightened in the final chase, where we get to a sort of area of the house which seems at once backstage behind a theatre, but also a storage room for props, but some of them are set up in little dioramas, an area much larger seemingly than the living space in the house, but a fantastically strange, surreal and claustrophobic setting for a final chase. The ending is very brief. It comes very quickly, and it did leave me sort of going, oh, is that it? And reading about it afterwards, it seems that there are a couple of takes on it. What I thought it was representing wasn't what some people took it away to mean. So I'll be very elliptical and give no spoilers, but the very final scene of the movie shows the killer in front of a group of people reciting some lines that we've heard before. And I've read a review of it that suggests that that happens chronologically, and at some point in the future the killer is doing this. I, on first viewing, took it to mean that this is really what the situation was when we saw those lines being read previously, and what this is a scene from the past, and what we're now seeing is the reality of it. So maybe I dug a little too deeply and thought a little bit too much about this and came up with something even more convoluted than what was intended. But all the way through, because of the way we've been slapped in the face with so many fake outs, I was waiting for the final shoe to drop and for us to be told, this scene that you thought happened this way wasn't like that, it was like this. So I was looking for something like that. Thus my interpretation of the ending of the film. What, if you've seen Curtains, what do you think that final scene is? A revelation of something that happened in the past, or something that happens after the end of the film? If you're after a bloody slasher, Curtains isn't it. As I mentioned earlier, the director was trying to go for more of a thriller and high-end vibe. But if you're a fan of slashers and you want to dig through the sort of crate and find some lesser known ones, there's enough visually arresting here and the killer's mask genuinely creepy here that I think you'll go away satisfied. Just know that it's a little bit mad, it's a little bit ragged, it doesn't really make sense if you think about it, but if you don't think about it, damning with faint praise, hey, this film's great if you don't think about it, but that is kind of where I am with it.